Former Indian envoy to Pakistan and Canada, Ajay Bisaria, has written a book, and it has come up with some very interesting details of various events that he was privy to. I am in conversation with the former diplomat. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Bisaria, let me begin with the question that you talk about in terms of policy dilemma against terror. And you go on to say that how India's restraint had perhaps sent a wrong message to terrorists and backers in Pakistan. I'm going to quote a part of your book. This is, of course, in the context of 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. You say that in case India had reacted in 2008 the way it did in 2016 or 2019 with a surgical or airstrike, a strong Indian response would have entered the security calculus of Pakistan and served as a disincentive for the Pakistan Army's support of India-focused militant group, something that you reiterate.
Absolutely. I think this has been a dilemma for India, not in recent times, but for 3 decades, ever since we've started facing terrorism, and I would argue even from the 1980s. The question before India and Indian policymakers has been how to react to it. So the argument I make is that perhaps in 2008, India's response was not sufficient, it wasn't adequate, it was over-reliant on diplomacy and not enough reliant on the use of hard power. I make a deeper point that India has suffered terrorism in the 80s in Kashmir, in the 90s, in the 80s in Punjab, and then in the 80s and 90s in Kashmir. And if we had crafted a response to this sub-conventional warfare by Pakistan even earlier, we could perhaps have saved ourselves from a lot of bloodshed and loss of lives.
Would you say that there was reluctance on the part of leadership in 2008 or an over-influence of diplomats? Because you go on to talk about High Commissioner Satyabrata Pal, who was in continuous engagement with Pakistan, and his counterpart in India, they were peaceniks. So did the government at that time rely too much on diplomats?
No, I think that would be oversimplifying it because, diplomats do diplomacy. The question is, what are the kind of tools available to you in your whole policy toolkit? And the issue here was that India had to have both the capacity and the will to be able to make those choices. And the argument is that India now has an answer to Pakistan's sub-conventional warfare as expressed in 2016 with surgical strikes, in 2019 with airstrikes, that it is dealing in the sub-conventional space where you have, a kind of warfare or proxy warfare below the conventional realm of battle. And I think that is something that is going to serve India well in dealing with the Pakistan issue.